Hello, kia ora, and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with artists from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm your host, Mandy Jakic. Hi, and thank you so much for joining me. This is episode 126, and I'm speaking with Tim Jones. Tim is a contemporary painter born in the UK and now living in Matakana, north of Auckland. Tim creates bold abstract paintings through the use of strong gestural mark making. Tim talks about how he has always liked to draw and paint and also take photographs, and how his background travelling extensively, diving and working on super yachts has ultimately informed his art practice. He shares his intuitive painting process, the worlds he creates in his work, and what they mean to him. We have a very interesting talk about NFT scams and the merits and downsides of social media, how his identity has been stolen more than once on Instagram, and the difficulty he has had resolving this issue. He shares how he sometimes experiences imposter syndrome as a self-taught artist and how he deals with that. We discuss Tim's current solo show, Quo Vadis, at Parnell Gallery in Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland, and we explore some of the works within the exhibition. Quo Vadis is on now and runs until June the 25th, 2024. Kia ora, Tim.
Hi, how are you, Mandy?
I'm very well. How are you?
Very well, thank
Good.
you. Lovely to be
Good.
here.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you here and very nice to meet you. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I love your work. Really enjoyed listening to your previous ones and some great insights there, and really enjoyed hearing from other artists. So yeah, it's a great thing you're doing.
Thank you. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your story as well, which is quite connected to the sea and boating, which is kind of our family's interest. So really looking forward to hearing all about it and then how you got into painting. You were born in London in the UK, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, just outside London. So yeah, my childhood was really in the big city and around the big city. Although looking back in time to those times, it's not that long ago, but it was a different time then. You know, there was a lot more space, and I felt like London was quite easy back then. But yeah, now it's very busy, and obviously it's grown so much. But yeah, that was my youth and my childhood, I guess.
Yeah, good place to grow up though in a way. And then did you find, I mean, as a child, were you thinking creatively, do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. I've always painted. I always drew. Really, I think that's where it starts with the pencil, right? For most of us. And there was some sort of talent there, I guess. I did win awards, and in my high school, I was winning awards and things. So it all started with that, just really with the pencil and drawing, and then went on to painting, and excelled really at it, but didn't necessarily think too much about a career. I probably wasn't thinking too much about that anyway
Yeah.
at that time, and just being sort of playful and enjoying it as a kid. And then, yeah, slowly but surely, I think, it started to cement into more of who I was, and I would be painting for fun outside of school or drawing. And yeah, it was just sort of, I would probably say, more of a hobby.
Mm.
And then it became more sort of as I got a little bit older. I actually went to work in insurance first of all, and I actually went into photography a little bit more. My dad, I remember, he bought me a 35mm SLR Olympus, I think it was, and I started taking photographs. So I think that it shifted from drawing to photography, and that felt sort of a natural process. You could see the artistry in it, and really working with composition. Sort of decided to follow my dad's footsteps in a way. So he was in insurance, and I went to work in London and around London. in Leadenhall Street and the Lloyd's building. And it was very much corporate London. It was a lot of fun. And that was sort of my first taste of work. And as I was doing that, then I was still taking photographs on almost like as a hobby, I would say. I started to do sort of portraiture, and I did some weddings for friends and different things like this. And it sort of gave you that more commercial side of the understanding of it as well. But I'd also love to take my own work and get it printed and go into the darkroom and play around. And then kept drawing as well, and kept painting. I went to Africa on my own for 6 months and traveled from Cape Town to Kenya overland. And that was pretty rough, to be honest. It was backpack on, getting on buses, cruising, had an amazing group of people. Same, did Europe for a long time, did the whole of Australia, and, just really started to explore. And I think that was what really influenced me the most, was the exploration. Sort of view myself as an adventurer in a way. And that kind of drove that process, I think, to more towards art and towards more of a creative and spiritual process rather than playing in the corporate fields that I was. So there was a big shift. We're talking about my 20s here. And Australia as well. I mean, the country just inspired me. I loved it. It was, being around the ocean more. And that's where I started to dive and work on yachts and boats, probably more boats rather than yachts. So I was a dive master on the Great Barrier Reef for a while. And I was doing a lot of photography, underwater photography as well, and still painting and drawing. And then, funnily enough, I was able to utilize that, and I started doing some street art too. And that really, I would do some portraiture and landscape, and it was a lot of fun. Like, I remember going to the Melbourne Grand Prix, and I sold so much work, and I was shocked that was happening. But it was just sort of part of the fun of it, and it was maybe a little bit of performance. But the artwork started to slowly kind of creep in almost from when I was sort of traveling and exploring the world.
It's amazing that you actually still managed to hold on to that and sort of keep that creativity alive while you were exploring all these other amazing career, opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I think it never leaves you, and I think everyone can be an artist, It's about just exploring that yourself and going into that sensitivity or those ideas about what you want to say, but you need that inspiration maybe, or that shift. And I think coming out of a corporate sort of background and going into more of the traveling and the exploration sort of side of things, it gives you that shift. And when you're young, you're trying to find who you are. And then as you get older, you start to explore that, and you get a few wins under your belt, or you start to trust yourself more. And especially with traveling, you're really put into positions that you would never think you're going to be put into, and you have to make decisions, and then you start to back yourself a little bit. And so I think that process was part of the trust to go, okay, I can paint, I will paint, I can do what I want to do, how I want to paint. And sort of a little, maybe a little bit of dipping the toe first of all, and then you start to dive in. So it was an interesting process. And I think that the adventure in me was sort of coupled with that artistic awakening, if you like.
Yeah. And you can see that the work that you make now, you can see is really connected to the travel and the experiences you've had around the world, and what you've gained from that, sort of visually and spiritually. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a big connection to nature and to travel, but also to the experiences. Like, and with the work, there is obviously not a theme, but an influence from the ocean, for sure.
Yeah.
There is a fluidity to the work, and I feel as though that's starting to, maybe I'm pulling back from that a little bit, maybe I'm back to being a landlubber again, and maybe it's slowly, changing. But yeah, the ocean has definitely had a huge influence on my work, and the travel and the nature. I mean, I've been very lucky. I've had a meandering kind of experience with my life. Kind of rode my luck a lot. Been very serendipitous, and I've been to 65 countries. I've lived in 6 of those permanently. Traveled all over the world, and then I've sort of made my point of going and seeing certain animals in nature. I think when you start diving, there's like almost like a checklist of things that you want to go and see. I want to dive with a whale shark. I want to dive with a great white. I want to, you go through all these things and you start to tick them off, and then you get those experiences and just this constant broadening of your horizons. And I just love that. And I feel as though the work now for me is almost like traveling without moving. So now I'm kind of stationary in one place. I'm in Matakana, and we've got 2 children. So yeah, there's no big travels on the horizon right now.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future, but the work really it's part of that. It's almost like I can still go into that adventurer and playful mode and explore the pain, explore the feeling, the emotion, the ideas, and it's almost like this traveling, without moving.
It's like you're being transported into different worlds almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the idea that you're also allowing that experience for the viewer. It feels like you're heading there yourself as you make it, but then the viewer can take themselves to their own world, which may not be the same as what you'd intended.
Absolutely, yeah. That's my hope, is that my intention is that it's ambiguous by design, and there's almost a platform, like a diving board, that you bring your ideas and your emotion, your feeling to it, but then not too much. I think all of us have had that, when you walk into a big gallery and you see a Cy Twombly or something, and you can just lose yourself in this piece and just sort of, you bring your own feeling to it, because at the end of the day, that emotion or that person or their experience is different from every single human alive. So yes, things need to be beautiful, and beauty is the power to arrest or stop people in their tracks. But if you want to go deeper with a piece of work, then I think that you want that person to really connect with the work and bring themselves to it, and allow them to bring themselves to it. Don't necessarily tell people what to think too much.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people who haven't seen your work ever, Tim, how would you describe your paintings?
Well, large scale format, and they're abstract. There's hints of landscape within the piece. I think the reference can have a horizon line, but not so much now. I think maybe it was more in the past, but now I think that I'm sort of going to a more broader and more open approach. But the pieces, there is a reference to the ocean, and I think again that's the thing. So I worked on, as we sort of touched on before, worked on super yachts and dive boats, and I was a captain here in New Zealand on yachts when I returned. So there's a lot of time on the ocean, and I think that it just permeates your mind a little bit. Like you start to sort of almost see it and feel it. So when you're on land, you still have that recollection of being on the bridge, or laying there in your bunk looking out the porthole, or having this wash, and it kind of almost it just soaks into your mind. So I think that recurring fluidity does come into the work.
Yeah.
So there is sort of movement. It's very movement based, the work. And again, I feel as though they're sort of emotional landscapes, or landscapes that, they have a reference to the landscape, but then they're allowing this movement and shape to sort of wash over you as the viewer.
Yeah, they're really very beautiful. And you do think a lot about color. Can you talk to us about your color palettes?
Yeah, color palette. Well, I think that blue is kind of been fairly dominant for me in the past, and I am changing that now. I went to Australia last year, and I feel as though there was a little bit of a nostalgia towards the sort of red earth and the dusky kind of warm colors and the pinks and yeah, and then also just being here in New Zealand, been going on a lot more bushwalks and kind of just looking at the leaves and the colors and especially in the autumnal kind of colors, the yellows and the mustards and the red sort of oxides, and just bringing that warmth in a little bit more. But I feel as though with abstract work, you have to be sort of not careful, but you can't go too bright. Um, you know, I feel as though you just want to almost make these stories within it. So there's a lot of neutral tones in there as well, but with maybe one source of brighter color. Um, but yeah, I think the oceans it's really influenced my work. So you sort of return to blue, and I find it maybe it's a little bit of a default, but maybe there's a slight move towards those more earthy tones now.
Mm, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, when you look at your Instagram feed, it does feel very cohesive in the respect of color. Even though you are touching on other colors and warmer colors, it just still feels very much like your color palette.
Yeah. Yeah. What would I'd love to know what you think that color palette might be.
Yeah, well, I feel like it is absolutely connected to the sea, but has lots of, like you said, muted tones and sort of a gentleness about the color choices.
yeah.
Um, it has a softness. I think the colors have a softness
Yeah,
about
you're
them.
right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there is a softness to it. I sort of go into the more pastel or lighter tones, which can be a bit tricky because you can get a bit light and it can be a bit chalky or can be a bit soft. But I quite like that and with this new body of work, it's sort of been more about exploring the marks a little bit more and giving more space. So there's a couple of pieces in there that are much lighter, and then they've just got some elements of darker overlay. So the mark making sort of come through a little bit more with this show, and it's somewhere I think I'm going to is with more of that open kind of broader strokes, and then maybe more overlay and storytelling through there.
Yeah. And are you tell us about your approach to mark making?
So, well, the main thing for me is I'm loving it at the moment was because it's impulsive. It feels very it feels very true. It feels very much like you're just exploring, uh, this body, the hands, the extent that you can reach, the humanness of it all. Um, I think that we can get a little bit overly cautious when we paint, and I see that in my little girl at the moment. She's incredible, actually, as an artist already, and she's just reached that point. She's just turned 6, and she's just reached that point where she's questioning things and saying, "Oh no, I've got it wrong. It's not right." And I'm like, "No, no, no, don't say that."
That's such a sad
Uh,
thing that children get to that point sometimes, don't they?
yeah, and we wonder why, but it's sort of, I guess, they're feeling into the world, right? And they're kind of trying to make sense of it all. But we always seem to think that we have to make it look perfect or beautiful or right,
Mm,
and rawness of mark making to me is it's very real. It's very impulsive. It's
yeah,
exciting,
yeah.
um, unplanned, and then finding I've always found that with my work that there is an element of the unknown. So whenever I've done commission work, I have to say to people, look, the piece unfolds. I know the palette, I know the size, I know the way it will feel and look. That's my intention, but it's all about the movement and the shape and that needs to flow. So you've obviously got to make those micro decisions in real time.
As you go.
I allow it to keep unfolding.
Yeah.
So that's another big thing for me is I have to set aside big chunks of time, and I don't have my people probably get very annoyed. I don't answer my phone, and because I'm
Hmm.
like, I need to stay with this. I can't just work on one part for an hour and then leave.
Yeah.
It's like I have to stay with this. So it's quite immersive. But yeah,
Mm.
with the art making, I think that's another layer on top almost that I'm really enjoying exploring right now.
Yeah, and it's so effective the way you use your brushes in different ways to get those different marks. And the thing I love about mark making is in the way that you're probably working too, is that you something happens and you do something with your brush and it might be unexpected and then you kind of respond to that and then you head down another path and it's all very intuitive, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Intuition, I think, it's the most important thing. It depends, on the style of work that you're producing, but intuition's huge. I think it guides you so much. It tells you what your hopes and dreams will be, but it can come right down to something much closer to home like that. So just in the moment with that work, and it's sort of a metaphor for life, right? Should I leave it or should I take it away? Should I allow it to occur or should I try and control it? And
Yeah.
it's this push and pull, which is quite a beautiful process. But again, it's the letting go and allowing it. Because if we get too much in our own head or we think about what's perfect or right or should or shouldn't, then it just controls you too much. So you've got to allow
Mm.
that to happen.
That's so true. And it's such a personal process, isn't it, in a way? I mean, it's like you said earlier, it's very much you're giving a part of you in all of those responses throughout your process.
Yes. Yeah. I've started to realize that more and more that the art is just a reflection, this sort of the self. That's it. That's all it is. I think there's a great saying says that, painting is just keeping a diary of the soul or something like that. And it's kind of true, right? You're producing these things that are just expressions and they're
Mm,
moments of time. And
yeah.
sometimes I think we don't celebrate it enough. I know I don't, that this is something really special that's occurring, when we're in the busyness of life and things are just sort of rolling along. Yeah, sometimes we don't think about those things enough. But as
Mm,
an artist, it's about living it and then allowing the work to sort of come to you and being a vessel in a way for it to come through you. But yeah, I've not really thought about that too much, but I'm starting to go back to that space,
yeah.
now. Yeah.
Which is great. You've been with Parnell Gallery in Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland for nearly 10 years.
Yes.
When did you actually make the shift to deciding that art was going to be your career?
Well, it was actually a long time before that. So back in 2000, probably in the 2000s, sort of 2002 to 2008, nine, maybe. Yeah, I was represented by galleries in Australia. I had about three or four galleries at one point, and the work was really selling very well, and it was going really well. So it was the first time I sort of realized, yeah, I want to paint. I can paint. I'm going to do this. I think there's always been these kind of hiatuses where I've gone off and done other things. That's part of, I think, who I am. And
Mm.
yeah, like the yachts, the super yachts was a big one of those. So there was a period there where for maybe 4 or 5 years, I didn't really do any painting at all. It was, I remember painting and sketching on board some of the boats, but there really was not really much time. Uh,
No.
you're totally waylaid with other things. And the experience too, where we were very lucky. We got on a boat that went around the world, so we pretty much circumnavigated the world, and yeah, we saw incredible things. So every day is just an adventure.
Mm.
And I think that there's these periods in life where you're soaking up inspiration, and maybe that's one of those. We're working very hard, very hard. Sometimes 16-hour days for 3 months in a row.
Yeah.
But you're young enough and fit enough to get away with it, I think.
Exactly. And when did you start actually thinking of yourself as an artist and sort of committing yourself to doing it full time?
Well, I did commit in Australia. And as I said, it really did go quite well for me there. So I think that was the turning point where maybe the belief came in and went, you can do this, you know. But then I still had a lot of love for travel on the ocean and the boats. And, I was a captain here as well. And then there was a period here where I got back and I would still do deliveries across the Pacific or to like Tahiti and Fiji, etc., from New Zealand. And then I was a captain on a yacht here in the Viaduct in Auckland and a few other boats I would do sort of skippering on. But then there was obviously there's very much a summer season thing. So that it allowed me to have more time to be able to go, okay, I'm going to paint and put that side of things. And so it was sort of an overlap, I would say.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's actually it's a good combination, isn't it? In a way, it's sort of allowing you time in winter, sort of in the down season to get your paintbrushes out.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah, which
it
is
is a good
great.
overlap. And it's nice it's very different as well. I mean, they're very different things. So you get that period there. And I mean, both of them in some way don't feel like work to me, you know? So, you can say, oh, well, there's two different things happening there, but not really. It's just you. That's your personality and that's what you
Yeah,
do.
it's what
So
you do.
what you enjoy, it can flow very easily.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm dying to hear all about your process. I have seen quite a few videos on Instagram about your process, and it looks incredibly well organized with lots of color palette organization and other amazing things.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say I'm well organized. Sometimes I think I'm not organized at all.
Really?
Well, I can be quite messy. I'll use paint knives, I'll use little squeegees, I'll use big brushes, small brushes. They all end up just sometimes all over the place. And you find one in the corner, like, a week later that's dried and you're like, oh, I like that brush. But yeah, I do. I think with the color, there's organization. I've got rolls and rolls of canvas that I've spent a lot of time mixing color and working out what will, in a way, what the color will become. Because the way I'm working, you have to sort of almost work out how it will end up, 3 or 4 shades darker or lighter. Because I'm going to use this color, but as I'm blending and I'm moving and I'm actually pulling the paint, the lighter color or the white will blend with that and it's going to drag it and it's going to pull it. So the start color and the intended finish color is sort of something you have to work towards. So because it's movement based, I am pulling through. I've got big 300 mil, paint brushes. I've got, bigger squeegees. I've got even bigger squeegees than that. But if you're going to move in a big movement, it's going to sweep and it's going to pull a lot of the paint. So I spend a lot of time working out where the color will probably end up rather than, just going, okay, these colors work together. And then, yeah, it's more, like I said, I think before we started with the process, you have an idea in mind. You have the size of the canvas, the orientation, portrait, landscape. The color palette, and you work through that. But then as the process begins, there has to be this openness to allowing it to happen. And that, that's where I think the time and the experiences come in, so that now I know how to do that in the moment, like right there, and then make those decisions quickly, and stay with it. And then just another thing is to learn to walk away when you should, because you
Yeah.
can just, and he's like, look, I need to take this back. I need to go and walk away and do another session. But yeah, as regards a process for one piece, that would pretty much, I mean, we can talk about one maybe in or two in the show at the moment. So there's a piece called Origins in the show. It's a landscape piece. It's got these very sort of light blue, Payne's grey sort of background, but there's hints of teal and raw sienna in there. So I've worked that palette through, and I have an intention that I want it to be able to have this almost like light coming from within, because you've got to always think about where the light source is. And so I knew I wanted the light sort of center right, and then sort of almost like a vignetting kind of feeling around the edge. So I know that I'm working sort of dark to light that way, and then light to dark the opposite way. That was like multiple sessions. I always put down a little bit of texture. I don't really like the tooth of a canvas. I don't like to see it or feel it, funnily enough.
Mm-hmm.
I often painted on board before this, and some ACM, so the aluminium composite. And I love the smoothness of that, but I love to also feel the canvas moving and push and pull. But I'll work through some texture and allow that to build up over time, because as you're moving the paint, I want that to be able to catch or be uneven or see something, under the paint. So you'll see layers, and then I'll start with that composition. And I will probably draw out maybe some solid lines, just with a pastel or something, just lightly on the canvas to understand. Maybe then I'll start to work in a little bit of light and dark, almost like a grayscale painting, so I know where it's going to go. I'll say, right, we're ready to go, and that's when the phone goes off and there's no interruptions, and we'll go in. And usually it will be a few sessions. And often if I'm going to be using the paint fluidly, then I've got to be painting flat horizontally, either on the floor or on the table. And then after that, it's great to get it up vertically. And if I'm going to mark make or add things in, I'll probably do that. So yeah, there's a lot of different processes for each step.
And you use acrylic paint?
Yes. Yeah. I kind of mix it a lot with polymer, so that will give it the fluidity. So, glazing as well, sort of, that's another thing that I've been doing more of lately is sort of working it up with almost like a grayscale, in getting your tone and your texture and your color in there, and then bringing it up with glazing afterwards, just to give it a bit more vibrancy. But yeah, all acrylic. I will sometimes mix media. I love oil sort of pastels. So with the marks, sometimes I'm using thicker oil pastel at the end, just to be able to draw or sketch or highlight a shape over the top.
And do you find, you have mentioned that they become often abstract landscapes. Are you trying to create that? You've let go sometimes of the horizon line. So are you still wanting that feeling of creating a natural place by bringing in the light and creating that kind of world that we spoke of earlier? Is that something that you're working towards as you make your painting?
Yeah, I think so. For certain pieces. So there's a few pieces in this show that you'll see there's this almost like white kind of sky, like a light, very light driven sky. So one of the pieces actually in the show is called Ascension, and it's really got this ascending light almost running up the piece. It's a portrait shape. And yeah, that for me it's almost a spiritual feeling as well. The light, usually does come from above in a landscape, or there's this sort of drifting towards the top of the painting. But for me, that's almost like an ascension as well. So that's why I titled that piece that. It's a spiritual thing as well. There's like an opening to the light almost.
Just looking at the works that are going into that show, which is called Quo Vadis, which means, I had to check with Siri, but means where are you going? That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I look at all of the paintings that are going to be that are in that show, they do have sort of an earthiness about them as well, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. On this show, I wanted to have that shift to more of the earth, the feel of the earth, the connecting with the earth. Um, I feel as though we are. I mean, we have. It's intrinsic to us as human beings to connect with the earth. We're all hearing so much about how good it is for us, to have dirt under our nails, and it's good for our microbiome and grounding with the earth and all these different things. And they're all science-backed things that we know we should be connecting with nature, but we kind of keep drifting away from it.
Mm.
So maybe it's a calling back to the earth, and I like that, and I feel like that's, for me, is really important. I try and walk pretty much barefoot everywhere, uh, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do that where we live.
Yeah.
But I think it's a calling, and probably it's my personal calling, in a way, about the planet and about you know the world that we're living in and our connection to it collectively. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the Return, another one of the paintings from that show, that feels quite mountainous almost.
Yeah, that piece. The palette was defined much before, and the shape, but that sort of unfolded, and the idea almost came to me as it was happening, because I started to see it within the work. So for me, it's called The Return, and I often sometimes I've titled them before, but often after, and that is all about the cycle of water, essentially. So the evaporation from the ocean into the clouds, going up into the mountain, down through the glacier, the river, meandering across the earth, and ending up back in that deep ocean at the bottom.
Mm.
So once you can see it, and I sort of started to see it as it happened, the glacier formed, and I was like, that's a glacier. That's the mountainous sort of feeling. Then
Yeah.
you've got the tumbling, turning movement across the land in the middle part of the painting, and then that deeper ocean. So there was always this intention, but the key is, for me, is to not paint, because that's a big thing. And I think that we can do that sometimes. We try to fit everything, every emotion in, and the whole grandeur of a piece into one painting, which is a big task. So, you're taking this incredible imagination that we all have into one thing that's part of the physical world. So it's almost
Mm.
quite defining when we paint, and we all have these incredible ideas, and if we could just write them down, or if we could just, that's the beauty of the human mind. But if I'd have painted that piece with the idea of that before I'd done it, it would have been really hard.
Yeah.
But the folding part of it and the interpretation as I sort of painted it, I was like, this is the cycle of water. This is the life cycle. And so now when I look at it, that's all I see. But it's nothing too exact. There's nothing
Yeah.
too much that is a mountain, or too much that is the ocean or a shoreline. It's just, you can see it if I describe it to you. But if I'd had that idea before, I think it would have just been too much.
You would never have probably created it if you'd thought
No.
too much about it beforehand. And it's amazing, isn't it, with gestural mark making and abstract works, how just a really simple white line can suddenly define a whole form that you connect with, like a mountain or a wave.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the tricky part, I guess, is to send that message, but without, saying it too exactly.
Yeah, being too literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this show starts today, as I said, at Parnell Gallery. Quo Vadis. Why did you come up with that term or that title?
So I love the idea of the question, where are you going?
Mm.
I think it's a beautiful question. I think it's something we need to ask ourselves, in life quite often. We, you know, physically, where are we going? What are we trying to achieve? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? But also, what are we trying to say? What are we trying to do? What do we want to experience? You
Mm.
know, who are we? Are we the people we want to be? You know, are we living our best life? So that really resonated with me before the show and during the show. But also within the show, you know, I feel like there may be a slight shift happening in my work. And I think that question is really guiding me a little bit at the moment. So where are you going here? You know, what's next? Are you going to
Yeah.
push open more mark making into bigger areas and larger work, or are you going to sort of return to what you knew already? And, you know, what's the next step?
I love that. It's like sort of where are you going personally, but also within your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I quite I take it quite literally when you know, the art is part of you, kind of my titles and the feeling around it and the spiritual things that are going on for me, or the physical, or they really are. They resonate so much with what's happening and how I'm painting and what I'm trying to say and what I believe, you know. So yeah, for me, it's almost like a guiding light, I guess,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. I can
and
see that.
an outpouring, yeah, of what's happening. I mean, that's what it is. Art. It's really just a reflection, right?
Mm.
Who you are and what you're doing and what you're experiencing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When we try to paint something, we feel inspired. It's just a reflection of that sunset we saw, or the thing that inspired us.
Mm.
Capture it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that show goes it's from today, June the 11th, till June the 25th, 2024. And
Yes.
yeah, it's going to be a really beautiful show. Can't wait to see it. I did mention your really great Instagram account earlier, and you are very generous with what you do, and sharing your process on Instagram, and also you do quite often appear in your posts. Like, some artists are quite private about who they are, and they don't like to kind of bring themselves into their work. Um, but I think what you do, presenting yourself, is very effective, and you do have 20,000 odd followers. So you obviously are connecting really well with your audience. What is your approach with Instagram, and do you have any advice?
I think my account grew very quickly, and then it's sort of slowed now. Um, I never really expected Instagram to do what it's done. You know, it's really exploded. And I think I got in maybe just a little bit before, and so it grew very quickly. But now there's a lot of noise out there. You know, there's a lot of things happening and a lot of people really posting exceptional stuff. So it's sort of hard to sort of get seen now, I think. But I do connect well with people that are following me. I think everybody's sort of gone into that mode now where there's less likes and people are just scanning. It doesn't mean they're not interested, but they're just, you know, people just scroll. They don't even like anymore.
Yeah.
So the engagement insights aren't necessarily true. You know, I think we kind of get caught up on, is it working or isn't it working? Yeah, look, I mean, I put myself out there in my posts. One thing I'm not that good at is really documenting the process. And I see a lot of artists, well, not a lot, but some artists out there recording everything they do and putting all the process videos up. And I'm actually really bad for that because I'm too busy, to be honest. Like, I don't
Mm.
want to set up a tripod and put up a camera and record the whole time lapse and do all these things. You know, I'm just like, you know what, I just want to get in there and I want to create. So there's a lot of after shots. I'm fortunate enough that I know quite a bit about photography and video too from past experiences. And my wife was a photographer as well.
Oh,
So
really?
she's great. And
Yeah,
she
that's
can
handy.
model, but she can also come and take photos of me. So we do get good images.
Mm.
Uh, in some ways, I feel like, you know, people just want to see the art. I did go through a period there where I was putting quite a bit more of me up there and my family, but I've really pulled back from that now. I don't really put my children on there, and I think people are there just to see the art. They're not really there to see you.
It's a hard one. It's hard to know. I think people do like to see the artist, and I guess they sort of feel like they have a closer connection when they're connecting with the artist as well as the work. And every time I put anything up, like, maybe a photo of me in my studio with my guest, those are the posts that get the most connection.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's the human connection, right? You see
I think that is a thing.
face.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I
how
don't
did
know
how
that.
did that how did you get to that 21,000 followers in the beginning?
I just kept posting, and I don't know really how, like, it exploded so much, because it just did. But I think it was very different then. It was like,
Mm,
I don't even know when. I feel like it's sort of slowed now. Like,
mm,
increase is really slowed. There was a period there where hit 10,000 followers, like, I don't know, maybe 6, 7 years ago, maybe.
really. And
Yeah.
were you paying for advertising, and was that sort of part of your
I've done
strategy?
boosts and posts and things like that. But to be honest, I'm really, really slack with it. All of that sort of stuff. I mean,
Mm,
Belinda, who's at Parnell Gallery, she's really onto all of that, and I think she's really grown the Parnell Gallery Instagram account very well. But there's a lot of strategy behind that.
yeah.
Posts, doing the things, boosting the right things, but I've not done that, and maybe I need to make a bit more effort, to be honest.
No, well, you're
Um,
doing pretty well, especially if you're sort of maintaining those followers. That's got to be
yeah,
a good sign. Yeah, and
yeah,
it does look great. I mean, your photos are very professional, and your videos as well. They're amazing. And
yeah.
do you have Parnell Gallery selling your work, obviously, but do you ever sell through Instagram or social media?
I have done in the past, yes. People have approached me, mainly from overseas, to be honest. So yeah, I had a collector in Singapore and another one in the States and a few in Europe. I think it's an amazing tool. Um, it has its downsides, and it can be very distracting.
Mm,
It is an amazing tool, and people from all over the world will see your work, which just wasn't possible just a few
no,
years
that's right. It's
ago.
great for that. But you
Yeah,
did have a bit of a negative experience where somebody picked up your photos and your videos and created a fake account and pretended to be, well, they weren't pretending to be you, were they? But they used all of your content.
that's right. Yeah, it's happened quite a few times. There's a few out there, actually. There's not just one. I've put one on my Instagram and said, "Look, this is fake." But since then I've had two and three more at different
Really?
accounts. Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
It's happening to a lot of artists, and it's all to do with the NFT scam. I don't know if you know much about that, or your.
Yeah, I know a bit about it, but can you maybe explain that, what you know of it?
Yeah, so I was approached with this as well, and basically everybody's getting approached with artists. So really, the way it works is that they'll contact you as an artist on Instagram and say, "Hey, I'm a collector. I want to buy your work as an NFT." Um, and you say, "Oh, wow, great! Yeah." When they offer big money, 3, 4, $5,000, and people go, "Cool, cool. What do I have to do?" Essentially, and if you go through something reputable, then NFTs are fine. I have nothing against NFTs, but what these people are trying to get you to do is sign up to their own platform, which is fake. And what, if you know anything about NFTs, is that the minting fee is what they're after. So they make a fake website, fake, everything's fake, and then they'll get you to sign up and pay for the minting fee, with the promise of buying the work, but then they'll take that minting fee. So I've actually played a few people along, gone through the whole thing. Oh, wow, that's amazing. I'd love to sell my work to you. How much will you give me? Okay, $4,000. Okay, no problem. All right, where do I sign up? They send through the link to the website, you go through, it all looks absolutely legit. And then in about 2 months, it's gone. It's gone. You try and click on that link or you try and contact that person, it's gone. So the
Really?
whole thing is to basically get a lot of artists, maybe 1,000, to sign up for a minting fee, which can be quite a bit, could be $200. So yeah, then they'll take the money. And
Wow.
it's what they're using is they want to obviously contact people and look reputable. So they're using artists like myself. There's another friend in the UK, same thing that's happened. I've seen it happen to other artists in Australia and the UK, and they'll just take all your photographs. And if you maybe look approachable or trustworthy, they'll use your face and say, "Hey, I'm this person." Totally fake again, and I'm really interested in your artwork. And
Wow.
so, yeah, the
That's
whole
that's
thing from start to finish is fake.
it's really disturbing, isn't it? It's quite scary what people can do and how
It's
they
very,
can actually take your content and that there's no protection. Instagram can't protect you from that.
well, the sad thing is that I probably have 6 months of emails to Facebook, to Meta, and I've asked them to take it down. I don't even, and they say, the funny thing is they say it doesn't go against our guidelines. The interesting thing is the first one of their guidelines is that we want our users to have an authentic and trustworthy experience or something. And I'm like, well, it's neither authentic nor trustworthy,
No.
So
And to sort of condone somebody using your identity basically
yeah,
is surely that's enough to make them
yeah.
do something about
And
it,
it's
you'd think.
still up there. It's still up there. I still get people now saying, "Hey, someone's using your images."
Really? Isn't
Yeah,
that's actually really bad.
it's very bad. It's really sad. I, I did read somewhere that there's probably an estimation that a third of the accounts on Instagram are either fake or deadwood, which means they're not used properly or correctly
Really?
and are
Wow.
managed by people. So if you think
And,
about that, that's quite crazy. I mean,
mm,
uh, and I don't know whether they've just lost control and it's too hard for them to do, or they just sort of don't care. It's just they've got other priorities.
yeah, well that's a worry. And is there anything that artists can do to protect themselves from this kind of thing happening, do you think?
I think again, this is the best thing that can happen is to get the word out there because no one really knows. I think it's losing steam now, the whole NFT, fake NFT artist scam. But um, I think we're on our own. I do. I think that they've lost control or they don't care. And, you know, artists just need to know about it and go, I mean, I laugh now. People say, I do get a lot of people say, I'd love to buy your work. And I go, oh, yeah, here we go. Here's an NFT go.
Yeah.
And oh, great. That's awesome. Which piece are you interested in? I want to buy this one and this one for this much money as an NFT. And I'll be like, oh, the old NFT scam. Thanks, mate.
There we go.
And they
Yeah.
disappear like that. They're
Yeah.
gone. You
Oh,
know?
it's a worry, I think, in society at the moment. It's the same as, places like Marketplace on Facebook who are sort of using other people's identities and creating fake Facebook accounts so they can sell stuff that's not
Yeah.
actually doesn't exist. They just take the money and then they get rid of their account. So there's no kind of way of tracking them down. It's a worry. But thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that because I think it is good for us to be aware. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just to share this with and talk about it. I mean, that's what the artist community and all community needs. We need to talk, we need communication because with AI and all of these things that are coming in, people don't understand, and it just takes a few bad eggs to do this. And it really is, it can mess things up. But I think, all we can do is know about it. And now if everyone knows about it, they just say, oh, just ignore it. We move
yeah,
on.
yeah. It's just, knowledge is power, I suppose.
Yeah.
And just talking about your Australia connection, you did say that you had some galleries in Australia. You don't currently have a gallery in Australia, but is that something that you are working towards? And are you thinking about getting your work sort of more international out of New Zealand?
Yes, absolutely. I think I'd love to be represented back in Australia. I've had a few people talk to me about some options, and I've done a few art fairs sort of in the last few years. So one in Melbourne, one in Sydney. And then, yeah, I've got friends sort of up in Noosa that run a gallery. We've spoken about maybe going in there. It's just, yeah, it would be great to have a broader possibility of selling the work. And I mean, ideally, I would love to be back in the UK or sort of other places as well. You know, international would be great. So yeah, it's something I'm working towards. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of time. And you know, the gallery, it's a relationship. You know, it is. I've had galleries not work out in the past. Maybe just not as trustworthy as you thought. Um, Parnell's a fantastic gallery, great team, and it's well managed, but some
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
well after.
Yeah.
So even that, you know, it makes it very hard when you go international because again, you're talking about possible risk, and so it really is important to have trust. So yeah, it takes time, and I haven't really put too much effort into it, but maybe yeah, it's something I can
Something for the
concentrate on.
future. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a boy from London and someone who's traveled the world extensively, two questions really. What brought you to New Zealand, and how do you find being in New Zealand as far as, your artist career goes?
So my wife is from New Zealand, but we actually met in Australia. So we lived in the Gold Coast and we got together there. And then we went on to yachts together. And
Right.
I was working as a dive master and I was painting. She was in basically TV and photography. And yeah, then we was like, okay, well, let's go and do the yachts. So we left, and then we had a big period where we were all over the world, and everything was packed in a storage unit. And then we decided where we were going to come back to. Was it back to New Zealand or back to Australia? I have family in Sydney, but my immediate family are kind of in the UK still, and she had family here, so we ended up coming here.
Mm, great. Lucky us.
Yeah, I think New Zealand is an incredible country. It's got a lot going for it. It's got such a varied landscape. You know, you can
Mm,
kind of have everything you want here. So I love to go ski, and I've done a few snowboard seasons as well. And yeah, we get down to the mountain when we can, and you can kind of go to the beach, and you can go surfing, and you can do anything you kind of want, really. It's a
yeah.
yeah, someone said to me once, said, "Oh, New Zealand is just a big playground, mate." And I was
Yeah, it
like,
is. It is great for that. But then it's a very small country, and sometimes for artists, that can be limiting.
"Yeah, I agree." I mean, it's I think it's nice to have a lot of variation, and when you get to big cities or bigger places, people are allowed to be themselves, like New York or London. It's just so diverse. And I think I like that. I think the celebration is good. So I would encourage that more. I really want people to live their truth, whatever that is.
Mm,
Yeah. And yeah, I think that, that's a good thing. But, on average, most people here are very calm, very easygoing. It's a good place to be. I think, anywhere where there's a small population, it's going to be hard. Um, but that's not just with art. I think that's across the board with lots of different businesses. If
yeah.
there's a small population, it's just harder. So, you sort of you just have to deal with that. But there's also a lot of opportunity, and I think that people are open to things and they enjoy art. You can
Yeah, I
see
think
the
so too.
makeup of art,
Yeah.
and people are interested in it. So it's good.
Totally. So, should we get on to the questions now, Tim, or is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think it's been really nice
Yeah,
talking.
it's been a
Yeah.
lovely chat. Okay, so What is your biggest challenge as an artist, do you think?
There's a few. I think I touched on it before when I was saying, you try and fit all these ideas into one painting, and I feel as though right now that's why the title of this show exists. Where are you going? I feel like there is a little bit of a shift. And I feel like there's more space coming in and maybe a bigger vision, if you like, about what I want to achieve and where I want to go with it. The biggest challenge, I think, overthinking things sometimes. I think that idea of overthinking it. Also I'm a self-taught artist, so you often ask that question. It's like, what was your education? Where did you go? Like, who did you study with? And there are people, collectors, galleries that don't want to talk to you if you haven't had that path. So there's maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome comes along sometimes. For me, the thing with that is that, life is really your educator anyway. I think there's a lot of people that go to the best art schools and they have no intention of really being an artist. The
Absolutely.
percentage that comes out, maybe the are artist, is quite low. But, it's really about what you want to say. And life can encourage that in sort of ways you never really thought. You have these experiences and maybe you'll come to it later in life. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that will always want to paint their entire life, and then maybe when they retire, they start. So it never really goes away. I believe that the art it's intrinsic, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but probably the most important thing, along with music and film, which is art in the world. There's a great quote. It's Rick Rubin, and it's something like, it's not unusual for science to catch up with art eventually, and nor is it unusual for art to catch up with the spiritual,
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, I think with there's a lot of guidance comes from art, and it's a beautiful thing that we really need to embrace within ourselves, and wherever that comes from, you've got to really allow it to come forward and not doubt yourself. That doesn't mean you sort of just go in blindly, but also I think everybody is a creator, and we should all sort of listen to that as much as we can.
Yeah, and try to embrace it.
Yeah. But there are challenges. I mean, young children, challenging.
Yeah.
Carving out time, time is really, and space, time and space. So I think, it was John Cleese said something about space. Like, it's one thing to create the space, but then it's another thing to create it for a length of time, And then I think he mentions time again. He says the other thing is to tolerate the discomfort of an idea, how long it might take. So that takes time. So that again comes to the space. And when you've got young kids, that's pretty hard because everything's on a schedule. So you can't just allow too long for things to unfold. It's like, no, there's a time limit and we need to move this thing along.
Yeah, which is probably what every artist feels, never enough time. And what would you say to your younger artistic self?
Ooh, I would probably say start as you mean to go on. Like, spend a little bit more time getting really, really clear about the end game, what you're trying to do. Because I think again, as we discussed, my life's meandered quite a lot. I feel very blessed. I've done so many things and traveled so many places and experienced all walks of life. And stayed with tribes in Africa and, and in Costa Rica and different places, just really got amongst community and life. So I feel as though I kind of meandered. Like I say, I was spray paint and murals and, all these things. So that was almost like my education, I guess. So, but you have to do that. So I painted oils, I painted portraiture, I painted all these different things. So it was all this exploration. So I guess the advice would be like, start as you mean to go on. Try and choose what it is you're trying to say. But then again, that comes down to the honing of the idea. Like you've got to have the wide world before you come into the focus.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes in hindsight, you can see that what you might have done or could have done. But at the time, you're just on that journey, and everything you've done is so much informed your practice, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hindsight's a funny thing, isn't it? It
is.
So easy to look back. So I should have done that.
Yeah. But if you had done that, then maybe it wouldn't have turned out as it is now. So, who knows? Right. And which artists do you admire and perhaps inform your work in some way?
Pretty varied. When I was a kid, it was definitely Dali. And so when I was drawing, I would draw a lot of almost dreamlike kind of, I remember copying, I can't remember the name of it, the one with the tiger sort of jumping out of the pomegranate and I copied it almost like exactly. Dali was that, it was that dream. It was the dream. It was always, I heard a story about how he would fall asleep with an apple, and when the apple hit the floor, he would draw what was in his mind, his hand. So I love the dreamscape of that. But then it changes, right? And I feel like I've kind of gone more into the abstraction. So when I got to Australia, one of the big ones for me was Brett Whiteley. So again, if you look at Brett Whiteley's work, he had a little bit of that Dali-esque feeling to some of his later work. But I found myself resonating with the earlier works, which were very much abstractions, sort of shapes, and the Woman in the Bath series and the whole thing. And it's all just, his whole take on abstraction and the tones and the colors. So I really resonate with him. And then I love Damien Hirst just because he's Damien Hirst.
Yeah. Pretty amazing.
He's pretty funny. I mean, he's a geezer, he's English, and he's just, when you hear him talk about his work, he's just so nonchalant almost. But, there's not many people in the world that can do what he does because they don't have the funds. But he just comes up with an idea and puts it into action, and away it goes.
Yeah, and he breaks lots of rules in a way, but in a good way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he's a character, and I like it. I like observing that. Yeah.
And he's very controversial too, which is quite good.
Yeah, absolutely. He's living it the way he wants to live it, and
quite polarizing.
Yes. Yeah. But I think that's when you want to sell, that's kind of, you need a little bit of that press, right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's what's probably made him as famous as he is, partly.
Yeah.
And have you finished your list?
There's more. There always is. When I was in Australia, I loved, because there was a fluidity to it, similar to not quite the same as mine, but Dal Frank's work. Again, very, very interesting character. But he was kind of unknown, like who he was kind of unknown, 20 years ago. He's come out of his shell a little bit more now, and I see there's a new doco on him. But yeah, his fluidity, he just did these big, big fluid, like basically poured varnish paintings. And there was always a resonance to my work in a way. It was different, very different, but I would control the paint a lot more and, use the paint differently. But I enjoyed that. There was a period there not so much now, but I think there's always periods, and it's obviously what you're surrounded by. So I was in Australia, so it was there, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then with mark making, I mean, like, yeah, there's even, and we're going quite broad here with with very different artists, but Cy Twombly, you know, you look at his mark making and his rawness and the just childlike truth of it all. You know, there's something in that. I've stood in front of quite a few of his paintings and just stayed there for half an hour. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, that's a good list. That's a nice broad range of artists
It
there.
is pretty broad. But, you know, I
But
think there's a great term I like with you've got expanders. And so when you look at somebody sort of maybe ahead of you, or, you know, someone you can look up to, you have these expander lists. So you can reach that, or you can get to there. It's just nice to have broad, broad lists that you can kind of aspire to. A little
yeah,
bit everybody, right, as well.
yeah, 100%. And why do you make the work you make?
I think it's intrinsic to who I am. And I think that reflection sort of comes through in it. And, you know, funny enough, my first show with Parnell, I think it was called Restless. And it was just when I was still on boats. It was very fluid. It was very much the ocean. And I was still doing deliveries. So I'd sail, you know, 4 or 5 days to wherever, and then sail another 4 or 5 days and fly back. And yeah, I mean, like, when I look back, I like, that's so funny that, you know, that restless, it's what you were doing. It's where
Mm,
it was who you
mm,
were. You were on the ocean, you were restless, you were excited by this movement. And then, you know, I think it's intrinsic. It is. It's who I am. There is a spiritual side to it as well. I think that it's not necessarily just, for me anyway, about the end product. The process is really, it's really it's really beautiful to me, and it's exciting to me, and I can't imagine not doing it. So yeah, the work I know is kind of just a pure reflection and an expression of where I am as well, and I know that will change, and I'm okay with that too. So the title of this show, where are you going? You know, what are you doing next? What's happening? You know,
it's exciting, isn't it, in a way?
and so I'm pretty sure it has changed a little bit, and I think it's going to maybe just morph and change a little bit more.
Mm. And you have done more realistic works, which kind of still connect with your mark making and your quite sort of open gestural approach to painting, which are amazing as well, like your figures and I've seen animals and different things like that, which are very, very powerful and really beautifully executed. Can you see yourself getting more into that kind of thing again at some point?
Maybe. I mean, I've I kind of enjoy it all, but, you know, when I've painted smaller stuff, like I did a whole series of birds and nudes and sort of, yeah, portraits almost. They were usually smaller. And sometimes it was really like quite fine oils and kept it really tight. So for me, that sort of felt um, more technique driven, maybe like the traditional techniques. But with the abstract work, I feel like there's an expansiveness, and I sort of feel like I just want to keep painting bigger and bigger. But in some ways, there's a limit physically to the size you can paint, but also, you know, what will sell, and, you know, not everyone can have a 5 by 3 meter painting, you know.
Mm.
But sometimes it's nice to do that. It's just go big, you know.
Yeah, and make it really immersive.
Yeah, but I could go. I don't think it's on my horizon right now, but, you know, I think change is good, and incorporating that maybe back to the figure, or you know, including that, it could
Mm.
be on the cards one day.
Mm. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see. All right, Tim, we better get you off to your back down to Auckland and off to Parnell Gallery for your opening tonight. So I'm going to let you go. But yeah, thank you very, very much for sharing your really inspiring journey. My son is on super yachts at the moment, as I said to you earlier, and I feel like he is on a similar journey in some ways, and I'd love it if he ended up living a life like you have. He is a little bit creative himself, is really good with his photography as well. So, maybe I'll make him listen to this episode, and I'm sure he'll find you very inspiring, as do I. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing your practice with us.
Oh, thank you, Mandy. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe you have to get in touch base one day.
Yes,
But
I definitely will.
always good to talk about this. And well, I love what you do, and I really just want to say thank you and yeah, honor you for what you're doing. I don't think there's enough creative community, really. I think, when we're artists, we do tend to go into a room on our own because we kind of have to. So to have a platform where people can come together and just listen and share a journey, because it can be a little bit lonely. It can be kind of quiet. So yeah, for more community, it's really good. And I know you're doing a great job. I love listening to your shows. So thank you.